Now I want to talk about the video essay that you have to complete in the application itself. So not the video that you can prepare beforehand and then upload. Before I tell you a bit more about the format and how you can best prepare for it, I want to tell you why the schools are asking you to do this. The first reason is to check whether your English is good enough to be able to follow the program and to communicate with your classmates. If English isn't your native language, you may be a bit worried. Maybe you have an accent or you sometimes make some grammatical mistakes. We've had quite a few clients, international clients, whose English wasn't their first language. They had an accent sometimes, their grammar wasn't perfect, and they did just fine on the video essay and were invited to interviews afterwards. The second reason is for the schools to get just a bit of a better idea of what kind of person you are and who's the person behind all these essays. You could call it the step in between the in-person interview and the written application. What does the video format look like? You get about 20 to 30 seconds to prepare an answer to a question that you will see in the form, and then about 60 to 90 seconds to answer that question. You may be able to do some practice questions, but you will have to do those immediately before doing the actual questions. So you can't do the practice questions, then close your laptop and come back to the actual questions later. The questions that you'll be asked are very common ones. What are your goals and why do you want to go to this school? But they can also be icebreakers. My personal favorite, what would you do with $1 million, or how would you spend an extra hour in your day? It can be behavioral questions, sometimes tricky ones. How would you deal with a colleague with a very strong accent? Or questions that ask for your opinion on a certain matter. Are leaders born or made? It will be tempting to try to prepare for all the possible questions that you may get in this exercise. And there are lists out there on the internet with that ripped out of the system, all of the questions, for example, that Yale ever asked an applicant. But that is not the best way to go about preparing for this. You want to appear natural and not rehearsed. So what you should be preparing for is telling a story. How do you tell a story in response to a certain question? The best way is to have a person be present behind it, to which you explain your answers rather than directly into the camera itself. But if you don't have such a person ready, or just are a bit worried, that you even feel more self-conscious, then the next best thing is to speak to someone immediately before doing these exercises, so that you warm up with an actual person before giving your answers to the camera. What can also help is to put up an image right next to the lens of the person that you want to address. My all-time personal favorite is Kate Smith, the Kellogg Admissions Director, and you don't even have to be applying to Kellogg to put her up next to your camera. And by the way, we told this to Kate, who's a very nice person indeed, and she thought it was quite funny that she is featured on many an applicant laptop.